Just finished watching The Kitchen. It's a, I remember watching Top Boy, for the first time, and I was like, I get the hype. I get why people are interested in this. When I was watching The Kitchen, it reminded me something that's very unique. Lately, when it comes to cinema, people appreciate Asian cinema, all these different types of cinema. And UK cinema is something for me that I never truly engaged in because a lot of times it was British. It was all about the monarchy. It was all about the British history. It was, in a way white. Like it was just the culturally I couldn't relate. And then when I was watching Top Boy, I was like, oh, there's something that I can relate to, something that I can see myself in, and that's something that I appreciated. When I was watching The Kitchen, it touches on a lot of things that I grew up around, living in these residences that you grow up in, and then all of a sudden gentrification and stuff like that starts happening, and you start getting pulled out. You're dealing with issues of immigration, you're dealing with different issues and of society and community. And one thing that I've started to appreciate about UK cinema is how they tell different stories and how they give each story an opportunity and that you can relate, especially being an African in the diaspora, especially things that we grew up witnessing. It's like, oh yeah, I can see that myself coming out of that situation, and that relate a lot more to that. The Kitchen is a story about a father and a son, and the need for reconnection, and the need for connection, and how the death of the mother reunites these people, but the journey that the father has to go through in order for him to be like, oh shit, I gotta take care of this person that I've never had to take care of because nobody ever took care of me. And you look at his arc throughout the story, and how for the son he has to go through these moments that his father went through, and he has to discover for himself. And then how circumstances and situations lead to people being in certain groups, right? Like a lot of times people look at especially black people and be like, oh, look, these people are thugs. But it's not like you're born a thug or you're born in a gang or in a situation like that. The situation is always like you need guidance and you need help and you need this, and there are people that are willing to take you in, and right or wrong, or whichever path that they take you through, you don't understand that it's wrong. Sometimes you're just kids doing things to have fun, and you don't understand the consequences to your actions, especially when you're dealing with the police, when you're dealing with where there can be situations of violence, and you're not really prepared for that because, you were out one time playing with your friends, and then the next thing the police show up and they're like, oh, you're outside beyond curfew, and shit goes south. So when I was watching it, I was like, I can relate to almost everything that's happening, and with both characters. Now that I'm older, where you're like, yeah, I can understand that, but also where you sort of feel anger with for the main character, for Easy, where you're like, bro, come on, don't do the boy like that. But what I like about it, and what I've loved about how these people make their films, is how much connected you are to each character, and how you understand that a villain is not just a villain. There's a humanization of it. Like I think with North American cinema, a lot of times the villain is just a villain. We don't really get to see the human side of that villain. We don't really get to understand why they're doing what they're doing, and we don't really get those nuances. I feel like in North America, it's more of the villain is just a bad person, and we have to see them as that. But we don't really humanize the villains. When I think about. So yeah, one thing that I truly enjoy about UK cinema is just how these stories are relatable, but also how cohesive they are, and how thoughtful they are, and how they make us understand society. They make us reflect, right? So when we see these youths, when we see these people moving mad, and the anger that they have, it's not to justify someone's actions and say, oh, they're a bad person, look at what they're doing. It's more of, this is what you did, and this is what they're doing, and this is why this happens. And it doesn't go off to offer a solution to be like, this is what can be done. Because I think a lot of challenges are very systemic, and they start from the bottom. They start from that lack of information, lack of resources, lack of assistance, right? So when you make a decision, and I understand this as someone who studied urban city planning and how these things work, whereby you're trying to progress a society, but also in doing that, you're affecting humans. We make decisions, right? We make decisions. We say, oh, if we move these 200 people away, but this 200 people, it's a family, it's connections, it's a lot of things that you're doing, whereby one person's life, how many people it affects, and how that decision then results in something happening. So I've always appreciated these films because of that. Because one of my favorite quotes from a movie was, "Media serves as both an escape and a reflection of society." And I think UK cinema is very good at doing this. Like what these guys are able to do through Top Boy, through The Kitchen, like it's phenomenal. If you haven't watched The Kitchen, it's on Netflix. It's a phenomenal movie. It's a phenomenal watch. The acting is great. Everything is there. The story is simple. You understand it, and it leaves you with that understanding of what happens now. And yeah, I don't know if they'll make a part two of it, but